the day my dad told me to get a real job. I had just closed a $300,000 deal.
Yeah, you heard that right.
My name is Jessica. I'm 20 years old. I live in my parents' house in a small town in America. And for the last 6 months, I've been making $20,000 a week, sometimes
This
more.
is a
But my
beautiful
family,
place.
they had no idea. Let me start from the beginning. I was always the dreamer in my family.
Do
My
you
older
like
brother Jake,
villages?
Bank job.
golden
Okay.
child. My younger sister Chloe, straight A's, scholarship, perfect girl. And me, I liked being online, not TikTok dances, not wasting time. I was learning. I was watching videos about digital marketing, remote business, freelancing. But my parents didn't see that. All they saw was a girl on her laptop in pajamas. I remember this one dinner. My dad looked at me and said, quoting her dad, "Jessica, when are you going to do something useful with your life?" My mom said, quoting mom, "Your brother just got promoted. Your sister got a scholarship. What do you have to show?" And Jake laughed and said, quoting Jake, "She's probably just watching makeup tutorials." I tried to explain. I said, "It's real work. I'm building something." My dad slammed his hand on the table. "Real work? You sit in your room all day. When I was your age, I had 2 jobs. Stop wasting time online." That hurt, but I didn't argue. I just looked down, and under the table, my phone buzzed. A client had sent me $48,000 for the week. I smiled inside. They had no idea. Let me rewind a little. 8 months ago, I was at my lowest. I applied for a job at a coffee shop. The manager looked at my resume, almost empty, and said, "Sorry, you don't have enough experience." I sat in my car in the rain. I felt like a failure. But then I opened my laptop, and I typed, "How to start a remote agency." That night, I decided, I don't need permission.
I don't need a degree.
I just need to learn faster than everyone else. For the first 2 months, I worked from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. every single night. I learned how to build websites, run ads, write contracts. I found my first client on Reddit, a small store that paid me $500. Then a second client. Then a third. One night, my mom walked into my room at 3 a.m. She saw my laptop open, 3 screens, me typing like crazy. She said, "You're still up? This is not healthy." I said, "I'm fine, Mom." She shook her head and left. She didn't know I had just signed a $12,000 contract. The hardest part? No one believed in me. My dad would say things like, "When are you going to grow up?" My Uncle Bob, he's the worst. He'd say at every family party, "Jessica, still playing on the computer? My son is in college." I wanted to scream, "I'm making more than all of you combined." But I didn't. I just kept working, alone, in the dark, quietly building. After 6 months, things exploded. I started an agency called Eclipse Digital. I hired 14 people online from the Philippines, from Kenya, from Europe, all remote. None of them knew I was a 20-year-old girl in my childhood bedroom. They just saw a CEO who paid on time. My weekly revenue hit 10K, then 10K, then 15K, then $20,000. One week, I made $48,000. I stared at my screen and cried a little, not because I was rich, but because I had done it alone. No help, no belief,
Just me and my laptop.
but at home, nothing changed. One morning, I came downstairs for coffee. My dad looked at me and said, "Uncle Bob said he can get you a job at his warehouse. $15 an hour."
Take it.
I said, "No thank you, Dad." Jake laughed. "Still too good for real work, huh?" My mom gave me that sad look. "We're just worried about you, sweetie." And then my phone rang. It was a big client, a national brand. I walked outside to answer. I said, "Hello, Mr. Davis. Yes, the $300,000 contract is ready. I'll send it in an hour." I hung up, walked back inside. My family was silent. They had heard my voice, confident, professional, but they didn't know what I had just done. I went back upstairs, closed the door, and smiled. The twist came at a family gathering. We were at Uncle Bob's house. Everyone was there. And as usual, Uncle Bob was showing off. He said, loud enough for everyone to hear, quoting Uncle, Jessica, the family dreamer, still on that phone. Everyone laughed. I just smiled. Then he said, quoting Uncle, you know, my company just hired a huge digital agency. Big money. $20,000 a week. They're called Eclipse Digital. Very professional. Offices in Texas. That's a real business, not some kid playing on Instagram. My heart stopped, because Eclipse Digital is my agency. And we don't have offices in Texas. The only office is my bedroom. I looked at my phone. I had a message from my assistant. It said, Jessica, your uncle's company just signed the contract. He doesn't know it's your agency. Do we proceed? I looked up. Uncle Bob was still bragging. My dad was nodding with respect. Respect for a business that was actually mine. I stood up. Everyone got quiet. I said, Uncle Bob, what if I told you that Eclipse Digital doesn't have offices in Texas?
He laughed.
What do you know about it? I pulled out my phone. I showed him the email contract. Because I'm the owner. My signature is right here. He stared. His face went white. I turned to my family. Dad, remember the screen you told me to stop wasting time on? That screen paid off your entire mortgage 2 weeks ago. You just didn't know because the payment came from Eclipse Digital Trust. My dad's mouth opened. Nothing came out.
My mom started crying.
Jake looked like he had been punched. And Uncle Bob?
He sat down. Didn't say a word. They didn't believe me at first.
Of course not. So I took them home. I opened my laptop. I connected it to the big TV. And I showed them everything. My bank account, $247,000. My weekly earnings, $20,470. My client list, 14 active contracts. My employees, 14 people from 7 countries. And then I showed them the payment to the mortgage company, $142,000. It said Eclipse Digital Trust. My dad fell into a chair. He looked old. He looked broken, but also proud. I couldn't tell. He finally whispered, Why didn't you tell us? I said, Because you never asked. You just told me I was wasting time. He didn't have an answer.
Here's the thing.
I didn't do this for revenge. I did it because I believed in myself when no one else did. But I won't lie. Watching their faces, watching them realize they were wrong, that felt good. Do I forgive them?
Yeah,
I do.
they're my family. They were scared for me.
They just didn't know how to show it. But here's what changed. Last week, my dad came to my room. He didn't knock, he never used to knock. But this time he knocked. He said, Can I ask you something about business? I almost cried. My mom started telling her friends, My daughter is a CEO. And Uncle Bob? He calls me ma'am now. The point of my story is not money. The point is, nobody knows what you're building when nobody's watching. So, if your parents tell you you're wasting time online, maybe you are. But maybe, just maybe, you're building something they can't see yet.
Keep going.
Now I have employees, 27 people, and agency made $1.2 million last year.